Hello, trading gets closed on December 27th, 2019. We'll go over our calls. Called for the pattern with the early high. This is it. Usually it'll rally and close near the day's high. That didn't happen. Failure's a straight line drop. Well, we had a couple of straight line drops, so you could call it a failure. But despite these straight line drops, we closed, and then despite dropping all day long, we closed positive, although it was almost unchanged, and we closed over all these lows. Usually when there's a straight line drop, it's a negative day. Still could be, because Monday's open's a substitute for today's close. We could still have a big drop at the end of the day, but for me, unless we get down promptly, this is a failure of an all-day drop, and I think there's a good chance we get the gap up Monday, but it certainly isn't a lock, and if it's wrong, it'll be clear before the open. Here's the target. It's optional because we came within 2 cents. Doesn't mean it won't print, but it almost always will. Doesn't mean it has to print, but it almost always will. Well, here's what we said. We have resistance at the high. Unless we gap down smartly, higher prices should print. Well, we got higher prices. I said look for a gap and trap if we stall at the blue trend line. I thought it was unlikely but possible. Well, the blue trend line comes in at around 32.51. Futures topped out at 32.54, which is equivalent to 32.51 and a fraction. That's the price. And we did have a gap and trap, so I thought it was unlikely, but it was possible. And although you have to fudge a bit by going into futures, is actually what happened. Kind of surprised me. Here are the early highs and lows for next week. Happy New Year. I thought I got everybody, but I left out people who celebrate Kwanzaa, so a joyous Kwanzaa to them and to everyone else for that matter too. Well, here we go. We got a buy signal, and that worked. MEJT says this drop is false, gives us a target of 32.4376. This came within 2 cents. When you get a direct hit like that, you usually get a tank. Of course, you don't know till the tank's over if that's going to hold. But it gives you an idea you're going to have a sizable drop. 8 to 10 points is typical, and that's what we got. So it increases the odds that the drop's over. But what really increased is you couldn't hold on to this low. Tried all day to break this low, finally broke it and it wouldn't hold. And then to rub salt in the wounds, once futures opened, you undercut this. That's not smart money, waiting until the market closes and liquidity dries up to sell with abandon. Well, this is my count. All the way along here, I had a number of places that would work for a top. Today's high really isn't one of those places, although if we go in the low 32.50s Monday and then reverse, I can make it work for a short-term top anyway, because this blue line should be resistance. Probably be around 32.52 or something like that. We've clearly overtaken other resistance here. This would make a much better top for me, but that didn't happen. In fact, I'm not certain looking for a top here is the right thing to do. We've gone through this blue trend line a number of times before. I had this as a possible high based on some wave counts and balance. I now think it's too low. It would imply that wave 3, gray 3 of purple 5 is really short. It doesn't have to be long. It doesn't even have to be longer than wave 1. But usually when the market's rallying like this, it is going to be longer than wave 1. And even if it's just equal to wave 1, it takes us higher than this price. So after I make note of this, I'm going to get rid of that as my target. Here's what I have. Monday's pattern has the early low. We could gap up first. It's negative if the pattern didn't close near the high. Unless we gap and promptly overtake the high Monday, lower prices should print. But everything else I view as positive. We have a higher price in futures. We have a higher MEJT target. The day-long drop couldn't close under any of the lows. And then the new lows printed as soon as the market closed, when the pros went home and the amateurs were left to play by themselves. Standard rules for mixed signals. It's always risky to bet money on guessing which direction the gap is, if in fact we even get the gap. But it sure would clarify things for me if we gapped up and took out this high. And if we did, it wouldn't surprise me if we saw resistance maybe around 32.52 or so. Not a lock, but look for the pattern with the early low. I'd like us to gap up first, and that's today's call.